Charles here, Hooked for Life Fly Fishing. And today we're going to look at the caddis I talked about in the last video, which is rethinking how we look at caddis and how they swim and what they look like when they're swimming. Somebody mentioned about putting a bead on one of these. How would you do it? So I thought, well, that's a subject for a good video. So I've done these before, and I thought, well, I'll just continue on and do the same thing. So let's get started on putting a bead on that stretched out caddis, the swimming caddis. My hook here is a good old Tiemco 200R, size 16. I'm going to be using a 2mm bead in tungsten. My thread is Viva's 10-aught in black. And I'm also going to be using this chartreuse 10-aught as well, because when we start on the second half of the body, we'll switch threads. I'm going to be using this dark dun for the legs and the head of the caddis, and when this gets wet, it's almost black. The body is going to be this hot green, and we're going to end up by coloring it with this marker. So let's get started. Wind your thread all the way around to the bend of the hook. Now we're going to put on a little bit of dubbing. We're not going to put in much here. I know this looks gray, but when this gets wet, it's going to be pretty dark. Okay, bring it forward and half hitch it off because we don't need it anymore. Now we're going to push the bead down, and I'll pick some of that rabbit out when we're done. Okay, now let's get that chartreuse thread started. Bring that in and swish the bead back. Put a few wraps, bring it back. We're going to create a bit of a taper here. If you've seen my video on floss body bleed through, you understand why we do this. Because we don't want that black showing, bleeding through the floss. Now I've put my green floss in a bobbin, and because I'm going to spin it up, I'm going to try to create a bit of a ribbed effect, a little bit of ribbed effect. There's different ways to do this. You could, actually create a bit of a rib here by putting some wire. Different ways to do it. I'm spinning up the floss to get that effect. So I'm just going to, again, trying to get that tapered effect. Okay, we're going to spin this floss up really tight. Make a rope out of it. And then we're just going to bring it back in touching turns. Now you get that segmented look of a caddis body. Now we can tie it off. And finally, whip finish. Now, one thing you could do with this, if you wanted to, you could leave a bit of the floss sticking out. I chose not to do that. I got a little bit of it sticking out there, not much. If you get a bit sticking out, don't worry about it. The end of the the caddis has a couple of legs at the back that they will clasp onto rocks and what have you with it. So leaving a little bit hanging out at the end is not a bad thing. And now the last bit we're going to do is just come in with our marker here and just darken the back a little bit. Don't overdo it. We're just going to create a little bit of a black line along the back. Because a lot of these caddis are dark along the back. Now if we want to come in with a toothbrush and just pick out some legs here. A little bit of dubbing at the front. Give the illusion of legs. And there you go. That's how you're going to tie a caddis with a bead at the back end instead of the front end. You tie on the first batch to put the dubbing in, jam the bead up against the dubbing, put the body on, and you're ready to go. You can play with different techniques here. You could use vinyl rib, you could use dubbing, you could use some wire to rib this. Lots of choices, lots of ways to do it. As I said, you could leave a little bit of the floss sticking out at the end to mimic those legs at the back end. Lots of choices. But there you go. That'll work. That'll catch fish. And, that hot green really glows in the water, which is what you want. Remember to sort of put a little bit of black on the back. For a lot of these caddis patterns, they're a little dark on the top. But the idea is for this thing to swim, is for it to swim in that fashion. So when we, have it under a indicator, it hangs down and swims like a natural caddis. So give it a try. You have to, at times, sort of think out of the box and try different approaches. And oftentimes it's the fly that the fish hasn't seen ever before is the one that's going to catch it. Cheers.